right, who needs music? Not these folks. Horse Racing Happy Hour from my back porch in Louisville, Kentucky. My name is Louis Remote. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Another show about Maryland. I get it, people. You don't like these. You like Illman. I don't understand that part. But Illman's back. How about that? That's a good part of these things. But we welcome in friend of the show, Callie Francois, as well. They'll be desk mates this weekend, and I racked my brain on this. I really don't know who that's better for. I don't think it's good for either of you, to be fair.
Wow. What do you mean by that?
Certainly, you know exactly what I mean. Yeah, no, that's all right.
No. Let's talk this out, buddy. No. Don't you be coming for Dan.
I don't think I was coming for Dan at all there. How about that? Yeah, no.
I think it's a great team, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think we're going to have a fantastic time for Maryland Million, celebrating the horsemen in Maryland, celebrating the breeding industry in Maryland. And it's nice to have a great day with stakes racing, and you don't have to have a Todd Pletcher or a Chad Brown win everything. We're going to have some of the local guys and gals on display, and that's what I'm looking forward to, as well as big fields and good betting races.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying it's going to be
Louis just jealous because his wife won't let him out of the house. His wife won't let him out of the house.
They draw like a batting circle for you out there.
I'm out of the house. I'm on the back porch hiding from my family. Thank you very much. That's right. How about that? Yeah, that's very different. So what you're saying is the late pick 5 will pay more than the $200 it paid at Keeneland today. Is that what I'm hearing, Dan?
I think there's a very good chance of it. I would hope so with these fields and these handicappers. Well, maybe not, because people are going to actually be playing what we're saying.
Oh, that is a problem. I agree with that. Yeah, there you go. Callie Francois on. We last saw one another, Dan, in the state of Kentucky. Callie had a nice time here. I don't know if she was ready for that.
I did. I was really surprised with how much of a blast I had, especially, the kicking it off on your show really just like set the scene, and it was a good scene to set. So well done to you for that.
Yeah, Callie, I thought was gonna big time me, Dan. It was hilarious. She's like, I'll jump on. We have a production meeting at 11. I know your show ends at 11, so I'll jump on right before that. We get to like 10:54. Our hard out is 10:57. I got nothing. That very nice woman that I met, via very digital things isn't there. And then boom, Callie Francois shows up. We go a minute over the hard out and boom, here we are. I'll tell you what, it's awesome.
Her word is her bond, Louis. And I have to admit, I honestly think she had such a great time in Kentucky because after going on your show, the expectations had to be so low. That everything was so wonderful after that it just made Kentucky seem so great. So everyone that goes to Kentucky, go on this show first, be disappointed, and then experience the joy.
The killer part is she hung out with me, and then she was like, oh, Kate and Bradar's over there. I'm going to go over there. And that's always the thing to do. Yeah, that's exactly how it works.
No-brainer.
It is a no-brainer. I agree.
I hadn't met her yet. I had to go over and say hi.
Oh, no. Literally, there's no sarcasm in that last comment. All the rest of it was sarcasm. That part was not from Dan. Dan's not capable of sarcasm. He's just mean. But no, Kaiten, no, all of us run to Kaiten. Don't worry about that. She's probably, she's up there. Dan's very good on radio. Kaiten's exceptional on radio. She's very pleasant on radio, so it works out.
Kaiten's exceptional in a couple of different ways.
Oh yeah, she also knows her bleep as well. That's right. So it is Maryland Million Saturday, the Jim McKay Maryland Million, of course, out there in Maryland. I wanted to get into some replays first though, because I love to get on these kind of topics, especially with Dan. Want to get Callie's thoughts as well. But I was at Keeneland on Saturday, probably their best day of racing outside of any Breeders' Cup that they ever have there, between the futurity and then the of course the mile races that they run as well. Zach, if you could pull up Carl Spackler winning the mile there in the richest race ever run there, that wasn't a Breeders' Cup race. I want to ask them if we've got a potential Breeders' Cup winner of an American turf horse going 2 turns against older horses. Not a commonality in the Breeders' Cup. But Zach, if you could go ahead and pull up Carl Spackler getting the lead and keeping the lead there in the mile at Keeneland to close the stakes card there. I'll also explain why Dan is totally right about the field sizes mattering a lot this weekend in Maryland, because something happened to be betting that should not have happened based on the short amount of money that I bet this weekend. Zach, you got it ready? I say as I go to a drink, and I shouldn't have done that. All right, so we'll get to that in a second, but I wanted to essentially ask 2 questions of the two of you. Which of the American turf horses is most likely to win their respective race in the Breeders' Cup? Is it Cogburn? Is it Carl Spackler? One that I know Dan has seen multiple times in person. And here is Carl Spackler in the stretch of that race.
Spirit of St. Louis to third. Carl Spackler has the lead. Carl Spackler in front. And here comes Spirit of St. Louis on the outside. Running B toward the inside. Then Talk of the Nation. Mountain Bears a wide fifth. And Carl Spackler, it looked for just a moment that they were bearing down on him. Now he hits another gear. He's got the lead back out to 3.5. More Than Looks is coming stoutly late. But here's the wire. Carl Spackler wins the Coolmore Turf Mile.
There we go.
And thank you very much to Kurt Becker and the team at Keeneland for that call of the race at the Augusta National of Horse Racing, which is Keeneland Racecourse in Lexington, Kentucky.
I think Kurt Becker for all of that. He did a great job. He had the horse right. That's all that counts in horse racing, calling races at least. Dan, what would you say? What says you? Do you think it's a Carl Spackler type that can get out front, stay out front when we're used to Euros trying to close at the end, or is it a Cogburn simply because of the speed?
I think Cogburn simply because of the speed and the competition. He's already shown he's dominated this division all year long. I think if Cogburn just shows up with his A- race, he's supposed to win the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint because we know all of the protagonists. No one from Europe, I think, is really going to come over and contend. Their turf sprinters aren't as good as their turf routers. So bring them over. I think Cogburn's going to handle them. I think Carl Spackler is a very good horse. I'm not sure he's capable of beating the Euros. If you're supposed to take a horse out of that race, you're supposed to take the runner-up More Than Looks. I think now he's the horse. Twice in a row, he's been beaten by Carl Spackler, and I think twice in a row he was compromised by trip and circumstance. Cherie DeVoe has managed him very well. He's going to be coming into the Breeders' Cup a relatively fresh horse.
Agreed with everything that Dan's got, on top of the fact that, with the way the race set up for Cogburn at Kentucky Downs, that was truly something. I'm not a speed horse girl. I'm usually not impressed by them, but I was greatly impressed by Cogburn and what he kind of doled out there. The first week of Kentucky, the speed was holding, and that's, it was due to the track, and it was due to the way of the track configuration of where they had the rail. And that was a weekend where they set the rail back, I do believe. And I just think Cogburn all the way. I think with just what we saw with Carl Spackler, they were coming on close. I think, yes, the European sprinters aren't as strong as the routers, but I would still be looking, keeping both eyes open behind me, with them coming down. I don't count them out as they're not really going to hold a candle. But I do think if Cogburn gets away with it, I mean, gosh, it really depends. You're going to know by the time they hit just after that half-mile pole coming onto the 3/8, if Cogburn's still anywhere close in front, if he's got a hold of the track, like he's a goner from there, I think.
Carl Spackler will take a 3 race winning streak into the Breeders' Cup, the Kelso, the 4-star Dave, and of course the Coolmore Turf Mile there at Keeneland. Cogburn's taking a 78 race win streak into the Breeders' Cup as well, so that's an advantage for Cogburn. It's just a lot faster and a lot more races. Kelly, did you feel the math there? 78 races? No, nothing. Okay, all right. That's the rate. See, I don't need to be in my house to get that look for women. See, that's how it goes. All right. Let's move on to the 2-year-olds. So we had 3 2-year-old races to qualify for that juvenile last weekend. Zach, if we could go to Keeneland first, we'll watch East Avenue here win the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity.
Quarter mile to go. They're coming to the top of the short stretch, and East Avenue leads it by 5 lengths as they turn for home. Ferocious second a length, and Dapper Moon is third off the final turn. It is East Avenue working into the final furlong of the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity. Maintains a 5-length lead back to Ferocious in second. Dapper Moon is third. East Avenue will prove much the best in the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity. Tyler Gaffalione checks over.
We had Brad Cox on my my morning show here 10 to noon in Louisville last Friday. I asked him about that short stretch at Keeneland and if he thought it would translate to the shorter layout stretch at Del Mar, and he said yes, it is something that he thinks you can kind of correlate between a shorter stretch at Keeneland and then going to Del Mar. Callie, when you look at these 2-year-old races, do you take that kind of stuff into consideration, or do you just look at East Avenue and say, wow, that horse had a lot?
No, absolutely. You have to look at what you with especially with has little exposure with these 2-year-olds get. They're just at this point, they're babies that are just trying to repeat. You're just trying to repeat patterns with them, right? So track setup, track dynamic, track structure, that's something that's really, I think, going to correlate. So Brad's obviously, he's going to be more spot on than me, but that's a very nice assessment, I would say.
And I also think running style has something to do with it. That's one of the reasons I think Chad Brown decided to run Chancellor McPatrick in New York with his one-run style, going into a late stretch and chasing some quality speed, or a short stretch and chasing some quality speed horses. He might have been up against it in the Breeders' Futurity, and he might have been up against it anyway, because I think this is an exceptional 2-year-old that we saw in the Breeders' Futurity. He's obviously well-connected. He's got the pedigree. His dam's a half-sister to Cody's Wish. He's got early speed. He's very professional and handy. This is a main contender, if not the top contender for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile right now. No disrespect to Chancellor McPatrick.
Let's watch Chancellor McPatrick if you do have it, Zach. He wins the Champagne in a style that's going to be difficult, as Dan mentioned, out at Del Mar, but here he is winning at Aqueduct.
Outside, they're approaching a quarter mile left to go. The posted half mile time 45.59, 3/4 in 1 minute 11-1, and the leader is Tip Top Thomas, but has to deal with Chancellor McPatrick, who's rolling down the center of the racetrack. Tip Top Thomas to the inside, Chancellor McPatrick with every shot to run this rival down, and now Chancellor McPatrick is in front. A 16th left to go, was last, now first, and Chancellor McPatrick wins the Champagne impressively and punches his ticket to the
Chancellor go ahead. Yeah,
please. The first thing that I noticed about that horse, and especially with, these younger horses, there was when he went to go past, he maybe looked at the horse for half a second before going on and doing his job. There was absolutely no lollygagging around when it comes in. These younger horses, it's easy for them to kind of get lost in the pack. This guy, I love how workmanlike that was in that effort. So there's going to be, coming from off of the pace, who knows what kind of potential trouble traffic he's going to have to finagle through. That's a horse that's a come from behind horse that you can trust to go through traffic without being fazed by it.
Juvenile winner in last year's race, came out of the Champagne. His name was Fierceness, of course. Didn't win this race, I should say, Dan, excuse me. But different conditions last year as well. Very wet track last year at Aqueduct. Chancellor McPatrick, is this a horse that can go 2 turns? Is this one that could pick off a hot pace in front of him?
I think he certainly can. I think that's what they're hoping for. You never really know until they try, but he's bred to get a mile and a 16th. What I'm concerned about is what Callie said, his running style. He's going to be going to Southern California, where the tracks are notoriously harder and faster and more conducive to speed. And he's going to have to pass some very, very talented runners. Is he a good horse? Yeah, he's sort of a unique 1 in 100 horse. You rarely see 2-year-olds win race after race after race like this from way out of it. They're usually very speed crazy and precocious. I think Chancellor McPatrick obviously has talent. I think he's going to be overbet because his running style is so exciting and people like to see the horse that comes from the clouds. He still has a lot to prove to me going 2 turns against a quality horse. But I do think the horse you ran down, Tip Top Thomas, is a good one, and that shows Chancellor McPatrick's quality.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was a very good field, frankly, in New York for that one. We head out west for the last of those 3 races. It was Citizen Bull who got it done in the Grade 1 American Pharoah for trainer Bob Baffert.
Leads the way by a length over Getaway Car, who's trying his best to close the gap. 4 more Emerald Bay and McKenzie Street. Top of the stretch, Martin Garcia still hand-riding Citizen Bull. They've spurted 3 clear of Getaway Car, followed by McKenzie Street, who picks it up a bit late, coming to the 16th pole. And it's Citizen Bull with a 3-length lead. Getaway Car did his best, but was second best. Citizen Bull punches his ticket.
I thought another very impressive run, frankly, and that's that running style, Dan, that we talked about. More the out front, stay out front style. We see this a lot of Baffert. 2 turners for sure. Seem to really like the extra distance here. Dan is, I got to assume, just, I don't want to say home field advantage here, but he's going to have a real shot on that first, or I guess the first Friday in November.
Certainly does, and he's might be the third choice as well, because I think a lot of money's coming in on the horses we saw at Keeneland and at Aqueduct. That was sort of an oddly run race. You would have thought Getaway Car, the speed would have shown the speed in that race. They didn't. They let this horse get to the front, and this horse was able to take them every step of the way. I'm not sure if the quality of competition that he beat is as good as the horses that Chancellor McPatrick or East Avenue beat. He's got a lot of things to prove to me. I think he's coming into his own at the right time, but I think he has to improve a couple of lengths to beat both of those horses.
We need to see some grit out of this one. Too easy. He's been having it a bit too easy.
A little too easy. All right, from
Yeah.
Kelly Francois. Johnny Piasek Etheroff on Twitter has joined the show. John, did you make much of Citizen Bowl dominating the old Grade 1 American Pharoah? Long run of Grade 1 American Pharoah. Just a long history of winners there.
Yes, definitely. I would say because pretty much every other good horse in the field was his stablemate. I'm taking that race with a little bit of a grain of salt. Don't think he proved too much. Of all the horses, or at least all the 2-year-olds race this past weekend, Tip Top Thomas made the best impression on me. Thought he ran a big race on a pretty hot pace in the Champagne. Thought Chancellor McPatrick kind of did what he was supposed to do, given that pace. And obviously a very nice horse. But as Dan said, he'll be overbet in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. If I had to make a juvenile pick right now, it would probably be Tip Top Thomas.
I like that. Oh, there you go. Let's make everyone take a horse here. I'll just go ahead and be chalky and take East Avenue because I saw him in person. Callie, who do you think you'd lean on here?
You know, I do like that horse, and I think with the way the transfer that we talked about that. So yeah, I'm gonna jump on that bandwagon as well.
How about you, Dan?
I think of those three, I would take East Avenue, but I'm not willing to give up on Ferocious just yet if he runs back. I know he was no match for East Avenue at Keeneland, but I just think this horse is still learning. He seems to run spots in his races. He doesn't run on the turns, but he does seem to pick it up a little bit in the stretch. The light bulb's got to go on, but the talent is there. He cost a lot of money earlier this year, and his debut was very, very good at Saratoga.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, we lean on you for 2-year-old races and for maiden races. Between those preps and the Breeders' Cup, are you looking for anything in particular, shipping patterns, workouts, anything like that?
I think you have to see how these horses handle the track, and it's great that we should have access to all of these workouts, whether it be on XBTV or wherever on Twitter. I think you want to see how these horses handle the track. To me, it's not how fast they work, but how they do it. Are they changing leads on cue? Who they're working with? Are they keeping up? That to me is the key. But other than that, I just simply trust the horsemen in these situations. They know what they're doing. They have their routines. They're going to ship out and get these horses as ready as possible. We know what we got on the cold dope with these horses right now.
All right. Well, we will get into the handicapping in just a second. We'll take you through the last 7 races there at Maryland Million Day at Laurel Park this Saturday. But first, we want to thank our sponsor of this one. It is Manscaped. Use our promo code Horse Racing. Get 20% off your order, free shipping to your house. If you are a person that no longer needs to visit the barber, like me, perhaps you just need a little manscaping in your life. Get that hair cleaned up. Make it a fun event in your house. I let my kids do this one, and you know what? It actually. It's short, so I don't really care. Manscaped.com, promo code Horse Racing. Get in there. 20% off and free shipping to your house. We head out to Laurel Park. We will start with a 6-furlong sprint on the dirt there in the Maryland Million Lassie. This is a 2-year-old race for fillies, $100,000 in the kitty here. This one, according to the morning line maker, should be pretty wide open. The also eligible 13 Great Andre is actually the favorite in here. And John, before we go any further, could you explain how horses qualify for the Maryland Million?
So a Maryland Million is not an event a Maryland breds. It's Maryland sired horses. That is horses who are by a stallion who is standing in Maryland in the year that they were conceived. A horse who's Maryland bred but not Maryland sired can only draw in if the field drops below 8 Maryland sired entries. That's not very likely here since we have 12 horses in the main body, and Great Andre would need 4 scratches to draw in. You do see it sometimes earlier on the card. In fact, last year we had Intrepid Daydream, who's Maryland bred but not Maryland sired, draw into the distaff, and she won. So in this kind of race, I wouldn't look too closely at the also eligibles. However, in a race like, say, the nursery or in the ladies earlier on the card, they're worth a closer look.
There you go. Dan, with the 13 not getting into the field, who do you expect to be the post-time favorite in this one?
That is a very tough call because there is not a standout in this race. Callie, who do you think?
That's you. So you're asking for a morning line. Who's going to be the morning line?
Well,
you guys
the
can
post
you
time,
guys,
yeah, if you will. Yeah.
You guys can hear because so I'm going off of my notes on my phone. You guys, when I go in and off, you guys can still hear me, right?
Yeah, of course. You sound great. Yeah.
Great. So you're asking me who the odds-on favorite is going to be, or you're asking my top selection because those are two different answers. But I will say that okay. I wouldn't be surprised if I wouldn't be surprised if Malibu Hooch ends up getting a lot of money down. My personal top selection is going to be Divine Works for Trombetta. Let me know if you want me to go into details about that. But I will say, yeah, I think Shakara Fire also. It depends. It's either going to be the 1 or the 10, bringing in plenty of money. I think in this race.
Okay. The 10 is Malibu Hooch, daughter of Bourbon Courage. And by the way, this is a handicapping show, so you can go into as much detail as you want, Kelly. Whatever you think is pertinent here for sure. Tell us why you think Malibu Hooch is Malibu Hooch your top play and why?
No, so Malibu Hooch is my second in command, but this one is a half to Malibu Moonshine, who of course won the Maryland Juvenile Filly and other stakes going a bit longer. She got a lot out of her last race, and plus she did a near bullet work just 5 days ahead before that previous run. So she was running to keep up from the gate onwards. To me, asked just a tick early. This filly only has so much turn of foot, but she was resistant to let anybody pass her. So that's I think a lot of money is going to go that direction just based off of Malibu Moonshine, but I do end up going with the 12 in Divine Works for Mike Trombetta, who just won 3 races today on the turf, 2 of them being with Michael Sanchez, who rides this one. The dam, one second time out, going to the lead, not looking back, and the dam of the horse is a half to Catherine Sophia. This one just got so close and gets the outside post. I think it's going to be a big help. And in that Saratoga effort, lost out to another Cliche who was tried in the Frizette next out and just didn't get the trip. So I feel like this one might be coming in a little bit hot.
Second starters for Michael Trombetta, of course, hit at a solid 10%, Dan. Outside post, is that prohibitive in 6 furlongs at Laurel?
Shouldn't be with this horse because I think he's going to show speed as he did in his debut. He didn't get off to a good start, but he recovered very quickly and got close to the pace. Now, there's pace in this race. Biscuit with the Boss is a very, very fast horse, and she's likely to show a little speed for Brittany Russell. I think Malibu Hooch is a very dangerous contender. She showed speed to win her debut at Timonium. I liked her last race, her first race against Winners. She broke from a very tough outside post position. She was placed on a hard chase in between horses on the turn, and she stayed on pretty gamely to finish third. I think it was a good learning experience to show that she does not need the lead to win. I'm expecting a good performance out of her. She'll be my top pick.
9-2 with the inclusion of the also eligible John is Onyx 10, the 4 horse here for trainer Gary Capuano, who hits at 39% recently with 2-year-olds. Do you expect that horse to be part of the equation?
I picked her second. I think she has a big shot. We had some big races at Capuano's Delaware Park base over the summer. Broke a maiden by 12 lengths in very sharp fashion. Then finished second to Caprice, who came back to win the Small Wonder Stakes in her nest start, and was second or third rather in the White Clay Creek the other day at Delaware. Onyx 10 was also in the Small Wonder, came in fourth, kind of progressed that day behind, among others, Beautiful Blown, who won the White Clay Creek. I think she's primed for a bounce back effort here. Had a good solid workout at Delaware last Saturday. That being said, Divine Works is my top pick. I think it's a great sign that Trombetta brought her to Saratoga in the first place, because she had been working at Laurel for a long time. Could have easily put her in a maiden race at Laurel or at Colonial Downs. Instead, sent her up there. Went off as a favorite actually at 2-1, got hung wide the whole way, while another Cliche, who as Callie noted came back and finished fourth in the Frizette, saved all the ground and won going away. I think Divine Works is very dangerous. A long shot I kind of like in here is number 3, Higher Love, Milan Milosevic and Forest Boyce. We had a nice race on debut, showed speed, held second behind Days, who came back to win a boost level allowance optional claiming race very impressively last Saturday. It looks like a very promising 2-year-old filly for Brittany Russell. On the Versanet scale, High I Love ran a 69 that day. Not quite in the range that she needs to be to win this one. However, second time starters often improve quite a bit. Had a solid workout since then. Went 4 furlongs in 50 and 1/5 this past Friday. Should be up on the pace and looks like the best value in this field.
Several picks of maidens in this race, of which there are 5 out of the 12 entrants there in the Lassie. We move on to race 7. Callie immediately regretted agreeing to be on this show when I texted her to say, hey, is there a mandatory payout in the pick 6? And that's the kind of stuff that you get from me, who's not willing to look those things up, but rather just texts someone like Callie Francois. And she
It's
immediately
fine. Because I emailed somebody else about it to double check, so it's fine. It's totally fine.
I take full responsibility for someone else's responsibility. That's exactly right.
Exactly. I'm fine with that. I got my answer in 10 minutes. Are we? Let's not worry about details like that. We got the answer, Louie.
The pick 6 does start race 7. It is the Maryland Million Turf, mile and an eighth on the turf course there. That's grass for people in Louisville. If you don't know what that is, horses run on it sometimes. It's usually on the interior of the course. And so that's something you may or may not remember around here. We haven't had it for a while. And so it's a green thing. It sits in the, anyways, they got what, $125,000 in this one. How about that? It does start the pick 6. I'll go to Dan first here. This is always a fun race. I love this one. It always sets up really, really well. We're getting a nice field of 8 in here as well. Sports editor on the outside. Sky's Not Falling in the 6. And of course, the show's favorite horse ever, Crabs and Beer. How about that?
3 horses in this race have really done well recently against open stakes competition. One of them is Krebs and Beer, who ran so big in the dinner party on Preakness weekend. Of course, that race was run over an extremely boggy turf course, and he's yet to replicate that form. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe I'd fade him of the 3 horses that have been running against stakes competition, open ones. Sports Editor and Starstruck Notion are the ones I'll be focusing in on my multiple race wagers. I want to start with Starstruck Notion. I don't think that was an easy trip this horse had last time out. He didn't break very well. He was forced 4 wide through the turn and into the stretch, and he tried hard all the way, and he just missed 3rd. I think there's a chance he could get a fair setup in here. And Sports Editor, they really tested him last time out. They stretched him all the way out to 1.5 miles, and he took him down to inside the 8th pole before just giving way. I think 1.1 miles is going to hit him right between the eyes. He has won over this course going 1.1 miles in the past, and he doesn't need the lead to win. Ned Allard's been doing very, very well recently. Those are the 2 I'm concentrating on. Sports Editor, Starstruck Notion coming in from Monmouth.
Sports Editor coming out of Monmouth, as is Starstruck Notion. The 3 here, highest speed figure ever at 1 mile and a 16th, gets a little bit of added distance on top of that. Callie, do you think that's a positive for a Starstruck Notion?
Yeah, I think it is a positive for Starstruck Notion, and I think he's gonna, with the way this race kind of sets up, I think he set himself up in the best way possible to come out guns blazing, which is what he's going to be needing here. But he got, as you mentioned, got squeezed out of the break a little bit last time out. So I think that says a lot about that. But the win 4 back, that's the kind of perfect trip he got. And he potentially gets that today with the clear speed that's in mind. So I love how we've got options with this guy. And I feel like with what he doled out, he's got to be respected in here. That being said, I do go a different direction. I do end up going with Sky's Not Falling. I'm not gonna lie, it's more I've been chasing after this horse all year long. So I'm just jumping on my bandwagon win. And I think he's potentially a bit zippier than the inside speed. He did inherit the lead in the Bird Allen and kind of just went with it. So he liked it. He stayed on that left lead for a while. I think that was it was the confidence that this guy needed. So depending, it depends what kind of value you get on him when you get, those 90 seconds before the gate. But as far as Sports Editor is concerned as well, they actually considered him for the Colonial Cup, and they considered him for the same distance over at Monmouth. Or he did. Sorry, of course he ran in there. Silly me. But he's got some tools in the back shed though. You go back to last year of June. I just want to discuss this year's June race though. He was against tough horses, consistent horses like the Addison Poor and Hardspun Reason. He just had a bit of a tick of an early ask in that race. He was tough, he was game, and before he kind of just ran out of gas on the whole timing of the turn of foot. So definitely crabs and beer. I think he ran better than what's in the black and white in that effort last time out. He came running at the end. The field was a little bit spread out. I just think he needs to be placed a little bit more forwardly. Now, having Sheldon Russell on, that it depends what kind of Sheldon Russell ride we get, because sometimes Sheldon loves to just take him back, and that's not what this guy needs. So really it really depends what, if Carrie kind of lays down the law in the paddock there with Sheldon. But yeah, super interesting race. You have to have respect for a lot of them. It's so many, those, at least those top 3 4 in that field.
Antonio Gallardo's only scheduled mount is Sky's Not Falling, the 5 on Maryland Million Day. He'll be in for Presque Isle to ride on that. Johnny P, go ahead.
I think Sky's Not Falling on top. He would be, I believe, the first horse to win both a Maryland Million Turf Sprint and a Maryland Million Turf if he wins on Saturday. He won the Turf Sprint back in 2022, and that double is something not even the great Ben's Cat could accomplish. So if Sky's Not Falling could pull that off, and he's certainly in career best form, as Callie noted. That was a very sharp win in the boat out last time out. One horse I like who we haven't talked about is a horse who is well known to listeners of the show, because I have given him out twice on the air. Both times he could not get settled down, and both times he did not win. He is on the also eligible list, however, because he only needs 2 scratches to get in. I think it's worth talking about, and that's number 10, Mission North, for Jack Fisher and Forrest Boyce. He broke his maiden 2 starts back on this track on June 2nd. He finally got settled down early, and he really showed his best self. He won by 5.5 lengths, ran a career best prisoner figure of 88 that day, which, to give you an idea, is better than anything Starstruck Notion has run this year. He's run no better than 86 this season. Tried first level foes at Aqueduct, next time out, had a bit of a wide trip, lost by only 1 1/4 lengths. Since then, he's been washed off the grass twice. He was entered in 2 grass races, both of them taken off the grass, and he couldn't go. He's on the AE list here. Should get a nice trip just off the pace on the outside, and as long as he's calm up the back stretch, he should have plenty of punch late. And I would be curious to see if both Starstruck Notion and Mission North are in this race, who Forrest Boyce picks, because she rides a lot for Jack Fisher.
There you go. The next race is the Maryland Million Sprint. It starts the late pick 5. If you are new to betting Maryland, we always remind you that 12% takeout on those pick 5s. Most playable bet on the East Coast, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, is the pick 5 on the Maryland circuit. This is 6 furlongs for 3 and up. On the dirt there, 100K in the kitty here. Always in a hurry. 7's 11, Celtic Contender. Lots of names that we get used to. By the way, I'm very glad that we did not set up a Maryland drinking game for this show, because I think people would already be passed out. There's just so many names that we mention so often on this show that I'm very glad that we didn't set that up. Yeah, okay, Callie gets it.
I don't know if I would have come on the show if that was the case, because homegirl's got to be on the show tomorrow. So
yes, you do. Circle P on the also eligible list. That's one I think you have to finish your drink if you hear Circle P. Dan Illman, where did you land in the Million Sprint?
I didn't land with the horse who I think is going to be the favorite, and that's 7's 11. You could argue he's certainly the horse to beat. There's just too many moving parts for 7's 11 for me. This is a horse that's changed barns a few times and ran in the Vosburg where he was overmatched last time out. And sure, he has ability. I mean, he ran second to post time earlier this year. He earned a 98 Beyer speed figure 2 starts back, and if he runs that race, he's likely going to win. I just wonder what we're going to get from 7's 11. Again, there's just been a lot going on, layoffs, trainer changes, etc. I'm going to focus on an up-and-coming 3-year-old in Celtic Contender, who I think is just very tactical and consistent, and coming off a good prep win last time out. I think he's going to get a good trip for Hammy Smith, and I'm not sure we've seen his best just yet. But I do want to focus on Always in a Hurry, who I think will drift a little bit off that 4-1 morning line. I realize his last race doesn't look very good, but it wasn't a truly run race. It's a 4-horse field. He's a late runner that needs some pace. He's tracking last in a compact field in a race won in gate to wire fashion by, if this was a drinking game, get ready, because it's Prince of Jericho. Always in a Hurry. Ran, churned on. It was his first off a layoff. This is a race with pace. It'll be a truly run race, and he's going to be running at the end. So I'll try to fade 7's 11 and make some money in this pick. He could obviously win. If he does so, he'll do it without me, and I'll lean on Celtic Contender and Always in a Hurry.
Well, there you go. John, who'd you land on?
Celtic, contender, also my top pick. As Dan said, he's been in fantastic form all year. I really like this last race. Very sharp 3-length victory. He actually crossed the wire first 4 times out of 8 starts on this track. He was taken down in the start of NASCAR back in late June, even though he crossed the wire first over Play Harder and ran a career best 97 that day. And in fact, really his only bad races have come around 2 turns and on grass. Take out those stars, and he really hasn't set a foot wrong in his career. If he runs his race, and there's no reason to believe he won't, he's very live. Do you want to know something about 7's 11, who I'll pick second? His only bad races this year have come with blinkers. He added them first off a long layoff in the DeFrancis Dash. Didn't do much with them there. Had him at Timonium. Didn't do much in that race. Took him off and ran a very nice race to win over stakes place Hurricane J and Feeling Boozy, who might end up going favorite in the Classic. So it was a nice feel, and he beat him easy. Bosberg might have been in a bit over his head of that spot on a wet track. All tossed that race out. One horse I want to give a shout out to is number 7, Bandcamp, bred by Annette and Daniel Eubanks, and that's been training in Maryland for a million years. Still looking for her first Maryland Million win. This guy's won 7 times in 10 starts this year, including a 6-for-12 lifetime mark at Laurel. Ran a game race in an off-the-grass event going a mile. Last time out, just lost by a neck to Search Engine, while 16 lengths clear of 3rd place. His 2-turn efforts have been very good. He is getting a class test too, though. He has been facing starter, optional claiming foes most of the year. This is a very nice group of runners, better than anything he's faced. If he wins his race, he has a shot, and I'll be cheering for him. But it's a bit different running against starter optional claiming types versus these boys.
Yeah, plus that 3-turn 6.5 furlong race at Timonium. Very different than the sprint at Laurel. So there you go. Callie, who'd you lay it on in the sprint?
So for Celtic Contender, the only note that I have written down for this horse is I think that this one can do whatever it wants in this field. So that's where I sit with Celtic Contender. I do agree Bandcamp is right underneath there for Annette Eubanks. I won't say the horse's name, but he did beat out a horse who will be running and is a really nice contender in the Classic later. But this is, and I agree, he's taking a step up, but at the same time, has anybody checked to see how Annette Eubanks is doing in this meet thus far? She's 100% in the money. So it's the next lot for this horse, and the way the barn is going, to me, why not just throw a little, this is a little faith money, and this is a logical step up where he goes and stakes company. He's skipping, sure, he's skipping some stuff, but why not? So it's kind of a buzz horse that I go about. I also just wanted to give a little credit to Johnny Z from Albany. From that 6.5 effort tells me everything I need to know about how this horse is doing, because I had him totally labeled as just a strict 5 furlong horse. And that's, yes, I'm not suggesting Johnny Z from Albany is going to win this race, right? But I do suggest him to have him underneath in your plays. I do think he's going to try. That 6.5 really did him good, and I agree with you, Dan. Always in a hurry, you have to respect. I actually leave 7's 11 completely out of this today.
Oh, it's a smile from Dan Illman. How about that? Oh man, wow. I like that.
If I can get that done, that accomplished, we're set here.
Well, and after 7's 11 wins the first leg of the pick 5, you can play the pick 4 in the next race. That is the Maryland Million Turf Sprint. 5.5 on the turf course there. Again, that's the green part in the middle for those of you here in Louisville. 100K in the kitty here, 3 and up. Callie, we'll go to you here first. This is another one of those sprint races that I think is a lot of fun here. When I Get to Heaven, I think is going to get a bunch of money in this spot. I don't know if you landed there. Witty, obviously, in here, another horse that you don't just have to follow down in Maryland to have seen run in many, many different spots. Where did you land in this one?
I did go with When I Get to Heaven, just because everything that I've seen Nolan Ramsey dole out, not only just from a running standpoint, but in the paddock as well. I'm very impressed with what Nolan's doing, with what he's turning out. I was just also visually just loving what I saw last year at Laurel and at Colonial. Determined Kingdom has really kind of been a little bit of a buzz horse of the summer. Just ran a good, tough fifth in the Belmont Turf Sprint, but he's been geared for this race. I do, my heart isn't with Whitty, but my head is with When I Get to Heaven, which understandably money's going to go on Whitty. He was considered for the Troy. He went to Kentucky Downs. He, talking to the connections afterward, he did not like that track one bit. The track can be a bit polarizing there, as you know, Lou, as you guys all know. But he had good reports training on it. He was the paddock pick for both Caton and myself. He just loves Laurel, and he loves this second wire finish. That's what he's made to do. So I may do a last minute change up, and then just for honorable mentions, I put in Great Idea and Basarati.
There you go. Wow, a lot there. Yes, not by the way, not his fault that he doesn't love Kentucky Downs. It's not, like you said, polarizing is a very polite term. I appreciate that from one Callie Francois, who I hope to run into at Kentucky Downs next year. John Piasek, where would you land on here?
So I think if you're playing a late pick 5, there's 3 ways to go. You could single Whitty, you could single When I Get to Heaven and not use Whitty, or toss both of them out, try to spread and try to beat him. I think Whitty is beatable. Then again, I said this last year and he beat me. So, only one shame on you. But, I know he didn't like the track at Kentucky Downs. That last race still kind of leaves me cold. He really hasn't had a good enough late punch needed to win so far this year. And we saw that last year going into the turf sprint as well. Outside a company like this, he has a bit of a hard time getting there. And because he is a closer in a grass sprint, he is a bit at the mercy of traffic. He could have a tough trip. He could beat me. I did pick When I Get to Heaven on top, who has been in improving form all year long. We had a big race on this track in the Benz Cat 2 starts back. Fought hard against Tidewater, very nice local grass sprinter. Then we ran a career top figure at Colonial Downs, when just missing behind Determined Kingdom, who, as Callie noted, we had a big race at Aqueduct last Saturday. Do you want to go a little bit more in depth about Basarati, who actually picked second in my analysis? She's a full sister to Biscuit with the Boss, who we'll see early on the card in the Lassie, and she's also the reigning champion, Maryland-bred 3-year-old filly. Made her first start off a 10-month layoff on Preakness Day in the very one. Didn't do much there against a very tough field that included Future Is Now, who's going to run at Keeneland on Sunday, and in fact is probably the best Maryland side horse running this weekend. It's not even at the Maryland Million. Anyway, Basarati has run well in her last 4 starts, running pretty much the exact same race every time, showing speed and just barely hanging in there for a slice. So I know she'll be on the front end early. I don't know if she'll be able to hold on this time, especially against the likes of Whitty or When I Get to Heaven. But she'll be a pretty good price. I think if you're playing an exacta or a trifecta, she's a good horse to keep underneath.
I love Basarati here, Dan. I do, just the number. If I get Russell double digits in Maryland, which I doubt very much by post time, but if that's happening and this is a horse that hits the board constantly, I mean, frankly, that's a win place kind of bet for me, Dan.
Well, you have to respect her early speed. I mean, she is simply the speed of this race, and breaking from the outside, she's going to take this field as fast as she can for as long as she can, and she might be able to take them all the way. Personally, I think we've mentioned the 2 main names, and they're the 2 favorites on the morning line, Whitty and When I Get to Heaven, and probably I'll just single Whitty. I just trust him. I think he's a faster horse than When I Get to Heaven. I'm not interested in that Kentucky Downs race whatsoever. I thought he was fine at Colonial. He probably had to split horses 6 wide turning for home and came with his run. If there's some pace for him to run at, there's a long stretch at Laurel. I think that Toledo will get him to the outside. And I think if the real Whitty shows up, he's supposed to beat this field.
Same Connections won this race last year, and so with this horse, frankly, and so look for Whitty to try to go back to back in this one as well. Late pick 3 in case your first 2 legs don't work out here. So started race 10, and by the way, resetting for those of you who have joined us on the stream, that is Dan Illman on the bottom. I guess if you're watching this, will be on the bottom right. Callie Francois above him on the top right, and our guy Johnny P. John Piasek on the bottom left. My name's Louis Rabeau. This is the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're here every Thursday. You can be part of the show as well. You can comment on the side. We will get you in on the show as well. All right. So 7 furlongs here for the distaff. 100,000 in the kitty here. Fillies and mares 3 and up. And I love this race. This might be my favorite on the card, Dan, because I'm having an incredibly difficult time coming up with a top selection here.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I think this is the best betting race on the card, with the Classic potentially a close second. But in this race, you can make a case for 6 or 7 horses. You've got Miss Harriet and Sheila's Warcloud, who ran 1-2 last year in the Maryland Million Lassie. You've got the Stranger Bourbon Bombay. What an interesting story here. 5 for 6 lifetime. We haven't seen her in 400 days. I talked to her owner and breeder earlier today. She said the latest mishap for this one was a fractured jaw that she's coming back from, but she loves racing. She's 7 years old. She's still here, and supposedly she's doing well for Ned Allard. Spencerian has just come back a completely new horse this year, 3 wins by blowout margins, and I'm going to take none of those horses. I'm going to take the horse coming from Parks. I'm going to take Foxy Jr. I love turnbacks at this distance, Louis, as you know, and Foxy Jr.'s won her last 4 starts on dirt. I think she's going to get pace going 7/8. Now she got a very good trip and ride from Joe Martorez last time out at Parks, where she was able to save ground. She was able to find every hole. She got to the 2 path on the far turn. The rail opened up again. She altered course back to the inside. She's got a lot of agility. I think she's a little bit underrated, however, and I'm looking for a hot pace that she could benefit from. So I'm hoping one more time for Foxy Jr. She is coming back a little bit quick for my tastes.
Kelly, do you like that pick?
I have faith in Dan. I also agree. I just don't go with I don't go with that just due to the fact I'm a big girl who has big opinions about doing quick turnbacks unless they're specifically bred for it. Which, listen, Bernie Houghton, I get it. I'm all about it. I'm just not about it for the day on Saturday. So for me, here's the thing. Visually, as Dan noted, extremely professional and just impressive. Just a quick turnaround for me. I go with the number 14 on the outside in Binny for Brittany and Sheldon Russell. They're half to Crab Cakes, 2-time winner of the Maryland Million Distaff.
There you go. Binny on the outside. The 14 horse, 8-1. Any guess, John, what the post time odds will be on Binny? I'll go 9-2.
I'll say somewhere. What's the difference? About 5-6 to 1. I think the post 14 factor and the lightly raised factor are going to cancel out the Brittany factor. I do wonder, by the way, Cindy, do look if you're out there. Let us know how many half siblings have won the half or full siblings have won the same Maryland Million race. Because as you said, her older sister won this race and was quite a good horse on the local circuit.
Send an email, Callie. Send an email right now. We'll have it before the end of the show.
Okay.
So as everyone has said, there's a lot of ways to go. Bourbon Bombay is fascinating to me because she has been around the block for a long time. She was in very good form at around Maryland Million time, especially in 2022 and 2023. And yet Aaron didn't send her to a Maryland Million either one of those years. She thought about it, didn't send her. And now she's confident enough to send her here first off a year plus layoff. To me, that's a pretty good sign. I think she'll be overbet because she has those very nice lines. And as Dan said, Ned Allard has been doing good work in the Mid-Atlantic all year long. But if you gave me like 10, 11 to 1 on her, I'd have to think about it. So I think she has to be respected and, got to cheer for Aaron. I mean, it's a real down-home owner breeding operation, kind of what the Maryland Million is kind of all about. My top choice is number 8, Miss Harriet. I am sure that in the late winter, early spring, David Baxter and Brandon McFarlane circle this date on their calendar because after the wide country, which she won very easily, I said to myself, this filly is going to be in a lot of spots where she's going to be in over her head over the spring and over the summer. As long as she can keep her form, by the time fall rolls around, she'll be very live in the Maryland Million Distaff. And that's exactly how it played out. Didn't do much in the Picada, didn't do much in the Miss Preakness or Weber City Miss. However, in her last 2 tries around 1 turn on this track, she's been very impressive both times. Set the pace in the Miss Disco, won by 2 3/4 lengths. Got a stiff class test last time out in a tough 3rd level allowance software claiming group. Shook him off, won by almost 4 lengths on a wet track. Pushed off a 2-month respite, a little bit of a longer layoff than she used to running off of, but still ran very well. There is a lot of speed in here, but I think if anybody is going to run them off their feet, it's going to be her. I also like Sheila's Ward Clock quite a bit, third off a long lap. She was second last year to Miss Harriet in the Maryland Lassie and ran a big race second off the bench. Number one, Malibu Moonshine is also kind of interesting to me. Homebred for Dr. Parker, Todd Beatty trains. She has very in and out form, but did win a stakes on this track. In the Geisha back in January, of course, a 3-time stakes winner on this track and fast on this track. Then won an open claiming race at Saratoga last time out from well off the pace, won it going away. Think if she gets a trip, she could mow these down.
Reminder, Bourbon Bombay, the 5, is not to be confused with Gordon Bombay. He was the coach in the Mighty Ducks movies. That's very different. So if people were confused by that, don't be confused by that. Oh, good. I got the look from Dan. I always want to get that once a show. That's fantastic. That is a dad joke. That wasn't even the finger I expected to see from Dan after that joke. How about that? All right. So
you get that after the show when no one's around.
We'll move on to the million. It is race 11 here. The late double starts here. We'll start at the start line and we will finish at the same one. Mile and an eighth there on the dirt course at Laurel. They are running for $150,000 in this one. Callie, will go to you first. Look, like the distaff, we got another wide open field here.
Yeah, I alluded to a horse earlier. I believe it was in the sprint that Annette Eubanks Bandcamp. He ended up beating out my top selection earlier this summer in Mosler time for Cal Lynch, Jamie Rodriguez. I just think, 2 and 3 back were kind of experiments. I think he's set up well to run really nicely here today. This is his test going this distance at 9 furlongs. I think with what I've seen in the gallop outs, what I've seen within here, I just don't think it's going to be a problem. We saw just a little bit of not necessarily a new leaf, but this was aggressive. This was aggressive of what we saw the ride from Jamie Rodriguez in that effort last time out. But that's kind of what he needs. I just think the horse is in such good form. So I go with Mosler time, and then I back it up with Annette Eubanks here in Brilliant Ice with J-Ron Barbosa on the outside. He'll obviously be tested. I picked 2 horses that are going to be tested at this distance, but this one is breaking the mold. I couldn't find anything on the bottom side for Brilliant Ice on, as far as distance breeding, but I like the fact that, last time out, he lost out to Irish Exit, who had a rough trip next time out up in New York, but he beat out horses like Armando R, Accelerator. Those are horses I highly respect, especially that 9 furlong distance. So I think that's the direction I go in. Who else do I have? I go with Vance Scholars underneath, Old Reliable. I'm in between. I'm still undecided between Market Maven and Feel and Woozy underneath for Hammy Smith.
All right. Well, go ahead. Whoever is next. I guess that would be Johnny P. Go, buddy.
So I picked most of the time on top is son of course, Mosley, who stands in Country Life Farm, Cal Lynch and Jamie Rodriguez. He's had a bit of strange circumstances over the course of his career. He had one start where he stumbled at the start and lost his jockey. He's tried grass. He had a bad break one day on a wet track. Didn't do much there. But if you got to pick through his lines in which he's actually allowed to run his best race, really any of his races win this, especially his last start against First Love Allowance Company back on the 7th, came from off the pace and won by almost 7 for the huge figure. In fact, he's won huge figures in each of his two-turn starts, one of which came at Pimlico and one of which came here. I think Market Maven is also pretty live. He actually crossed the wire first in this race last year and was disqualified. Ain't to Beer Cold, who was also in this race, was put up as the winner. This one has run some nice races at Parks for new trainer Jacinto. So Elise got a pair of third place finishes, including a nice third in the Stormcat where he closed pretty well up the inside. There's a decent amount of speed in here. I think as long as he doesn't get buried in traffic, he can make some light noise. I picked Van Scholars in this race two years ago. He owes me a lot of money from that day because he didn't win. He came in second. He, I think, is a good underneath horse. I don't think he has quite the late punch needed to win, but if I was playing a trifecta or a superfecta, I might key him underneath.
Dan, do you like Steve's joke about Bewitched better than the Mighty Ducks?
Oh boy, I have to say probably Bewitched is a little bit better than the Mighty Ducks. Come on, the Mighty Ducks. What's the matter with you? What do you
I grew
doing?
up in Michigan, and hockey. It was like Christianity than hockey. I can't help it. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, getting back to
from Kelly Francois. Horse racing things. Yes, right.
getting back to business here. Since I'm probably going to single Witty in the pick 5, I could spread in races like the Distaff and the Classic, and I have to because it's this competitive a race. And Callie and John mentioned 3 of the logical contenders that I will use. Mosler Time, I think, is just really blossomed since being allowed to stretch out around a route of ground. I think a mile and an eighth will be perfectly fine for him. Brilliant Ice, I do have the same concerns Callie has about the extra distance, but this horse is very sharp, is very competitive on the speed figure scale, and is fast enough to find good position going into the first turn. Market Maven is repeating the same sort of pattern they used last year when he finished first in this race and was disqualified for second. I think it was the Stormcat at Parks, the Alphabet Soup at Parks, and then to the Maryland Million Classic. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then if you believe there's a lot of speed in this race like I do, what about Mugatu? Who's a little bit, a lot of folks have been laughing at Mugatu because he's been thrown in over his head and he's 1 for 17 lifetime. But when you're facing horses like, I don't know, with the Preakness or Batten Down last time out at Churchill Downs, and all of a sudden you're showing up on Maryland Million Day, I think you have a chance, or at least a puncher's chance at a price if the pace is high.
Is there any chance either of these also eligibles could draw into this field based on the conditions?
I'm going to say no. John, I'm curious as to his opinion.
I mean, they'll need
a lot of scratches.
4 scratches.
Okay.
So it's possible. Okay. It's possible, but it's not what he's thinking about, I think, for more than about 5 seconds.
Got it. All right. Well, there you go. We won't think about it for 5 seconds. And let's go ahead and we'll do our annual private conversation with the Maryland Jockey Club. The final race of this pick 5 is a really good one. And I appreciate you folks listening to this show when we used to refuse the nickel claimers that ended up at the end of these things. You don't have to do that on Maryland Million Day. You get a handicap instead, folks. And that's what we'll talk about for the last race here. It is the 12th race. It's a $40,000 purse for a starter handicap going 7 furlongs on the dirt there. I think, frankly, a spectacular finish to this pick 5, Dan, because it is just no, he's shaking his head. Okay, all right.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm bowled over by this race. I think it's a fantastic betting race, and shame on anyone that leaves or doesn't pay attention after the Maryland Million Classic, because this is what's known as a get out race, and you can get out and make money if you're down going into this starter handicap. I'm going to be focusing on 2 horses. One is a veteran that everyone in Maryland is a big fan of, and his name is Clubman. And I know a lot of folks think he might be a little bit long in the tooth, but you know something? I don't think so. I think his form is completely dirtied up. They ran him at Delaware, I believe, 3 starts back off the layoff. He caught a wet track, a speed favoring track, a race that produced 3 next out winners, and he was far from embarrassed. And in his last 2 starts, he ran at Timonium. And while he's done well at Timonium in the past, I'm just not sure as he's gotten older that tight bull ring is really good for him. Anything but perhaps building a bit of fitness. I like him turning back to 7 in a race with speed. Maybe it's a little bit sharp for him this distance, but at a price, I think he'll be running late. And I also want to use the number 2, Divine Child. I know he's eligible for a non-winners of 2 life race, but look at the horses he was in against last time out, one of them being Celtic Contender. And Celtic Contender is my pick in the Maryland Million Sprint and would be barred from the wagering in this race. And Divine Child was not embarrassed rallying into a moderate pace. So I would use Divine Child. I would use Clubman. Even Rad Paisley, I think, off the claim is going to show some speed, but it's a really good race. Look for some value.
John, where'd you land here?
I will say that if Clubman wins and gives his sire Not for Love yet another Maryland Million win, Great Notion is going to feel a disturbance wherever he is, because he knows that a win by Clubman is going to make it even tougher for Great Notion to eventually pass Not for Love one day as the all-time leading Maryland Million stallion. As Dan said, it is a very tough race. I think you just kind of throw darts and hope for the best. In a race like this, though, it is good if you find boat shoes in a long shot to pick them. And that's what I did with number 11, Big Daddy's Boy, at I believe 10-1 on the morning line. I black out on the morning lines on a handicap, so I can't quite read it on my paper, but I know he's double digits on the morning line.
15-1, yeah. 15.
And I do feel bad for Gina Raw, because I know she loves this horse a lot, and he was playing away from her last time out. 12-5 by Gina Perry, so I'm not sure how she'll feel if he wins this race. but he is in improving form. He ran back-to-back, very nice figures. Came well off the pace to win at 5.5 furlongs. Last time out, just gobbled up ground in the last 8th and won by a neck. Just missed his career top figure on the business scale that day with an 82. He should like a distance, going from 7 to 5.5, or going from 5.5 to 7 rather, and should be a very good price.
There you go. And Callie, we'll finish up with you. Last race here, race 12, the starter handicap to close out the pick 5.
Troy Singh with Irish Warlock there with the number 3, coming off of that punchy effort over at Colonial. So I love the fact that Troy's getting the hang of things as far as, where to place these horses and, whether to give them some time. So he's starting to get the idea. And I think this one is just coming in with a nice little pop at the right time. So I think, you go from the 7 furlongs, you stay at this distance. This 7 furlong distance can be very particular for me. So this is why I kind of go with the horses that are proven at this distance. And you go back to that state bred allowance effort, salty season of the summer for the state breds here in Maryland, but that was a nice effort in June. And then underneath, I go with the number 8 in Must Be Love, because Jamie Ness is 14 for 31 specifically in second for this meet thus far. And this horse got asked just a touch early last time out, going a 2-turn mile over at Delaware, is going to appreciate getting back here. Was entered for a state bred allowance on the 21st of September and was a scratch.
There you go. Well, that is our synopsis of the late pick 5 and pick 6 and pick 7 sequence there at Maryland. Don't bet on the pick 7. It doesn't exist. Dan, what do you think is the normal, what are you expecting, like how much you're going to have to spend on a pick 5 to have decent coverage? I know you're talking about a single with Whitty that obviously reduces things, but are we in like the 140, 150 kind of range?
Let me try to do the quick math right now. 4 and 12, 3, 36, between 75 and 150.
Okay. All right. That's playable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think there's a chance there's a serious pay here. Callie, your favorite Maryland Million. How many of these Maryland Millions have you been to now? Is this your third?
This will be my third. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Look at me doing math, Dan. And John, random Maryland fact, please. I love how much like a sire fact or a broodmare fact or something like that. Just hit us with something really random about Maryland Million Day.
Well, I will say there is the irony in the Best of Maryland sired horse of the weekend not running in the Maryland Million, that being Future Is Now, who is by Great Notion. If she goes to the Breeders' Cup and wins, she'll be the first Maryland sired horse to win a Breeders' Cup race since Countess Diana back in 1997, when she won her juvenile fillies. And a further fun fact, the only horse pull off a Maryland Million Breeders' Cup double in the same year was Safely Kept. In 1990, she won the Maryland Million Sprint. A few weeks later, became the first Maryland bred ever to win a Breeders' Cup race when she won the Sprint over Dejour.
Oh, she didn't win the Sprint. Dejour lost the Sprint.
Still counts. Still counts.
Let John have his moment. Come on. This is the horse racing happy hour. What are we doing to Johnny B? Oh, man. All right. Well, he is John. When's the next time you're on the mic there at Yonkers, buddy?
Sometime I think in about 2 weeks' time, I'll have to look at the schedule that our intrepid leader Edison Hatter made, but it'll be sometime in next week or two. So if you're looking some way to fill the long fall nights, if God forbid both the Yankees and the Mets get knocked out and there's no baseball to watch in New York in October, flip over to Yonkers and you might hear me on the mic.
John, would you say your style is more like Jackie Lee or the Bullet Bob Meyer?
I would say Jack Lee. I loved his announcer nicknames that he used to do. And one day, because Jack Lee, who was the announcer at Roosevelt and Freehold for a while, he had a line. Every time a horse was like hopelessly beaten, he would always say, and at the end, it's so-and-so, but not today. And I hope one day I will have the courage to bring up that line, because I know if I ever do say it, that horse will come back and win and bite me in the butt. So we'll see what happens. So I might use it one day, but Jack Lee definitely had a lot of character in his call. So he's definitely somebody on the opponent's side who I look up to for announcing.
Where do people find your handicapping for Saturday?
Find me on theracingbiz.com. I've done 2 videos with Frank Vespi, who runs the site, one of which is live as of now, in which we dive into the classic, and me, Mackenzie Pfeiffer, and Frank give our opinions. Frank and I also broke down a pick 5 there, where we talked about my ticket. Spoiler, I'm leaning on When I Get to Heaven and Most of the Time pretty strongly in that sequence. For more info, check out that video. And my written analysis is going to be up on theracingbiz.com the morning of, in which you can find out my opinions on all 12 races. Hopefully they're good ones, but no matter what, it's going to be a great day of racing and a great spotlight of Maryland.
Man, we went to 1990 for that. I love you, John. All right. Callie, you are at Miss Francois to you on all of the socials. She's a make you jealous type on IG, just a warning. But are you, be honest, which one is more fun? Is Preakness Day or is Maryland Million Day? Just because it's the state folks. It's more of a, it's the Laurel thing. It's a little less of, your bosses aren't in from Stronach for this one. You know what I mean?
Okay, so this was a bad year to ask me that question. I kid you not. So first of all, when it comes to our first bosses, Dave Joseph just really lets me kind of do whatever. He stays well out of it, which is fantastic. I probably had the worst Preakness that I've ever had this year. So you know what? Just by default, Maryland Million this year, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. All right. What a great default answer that is. Dan Illman will be on the desk at Laurel on Saturday. I can't make fun of that because I'm just jealous. I want to be hanging out on Jim McKay Maryland Million Day. Do you have a preference? I know you love this day. I mean, to be fair, I know you love this day, Dan.
You really can't ask me what day is better, because to me, a random Friday at Laurel Park or at Aqueduct or at any racetrack in the country is good enough to me. I just can't get it. There's no such thing for me as a bad day at the racetrack.
The correct answer is Maryland Million Day, because I'm not there. How about that? She's Callie Francois. He's John Piasek. And of course, there it is. Yeah, no, that's it. See, you get it. Yeah, that's how that works. He's Dan Illman. Dan, tell people where to find you. Your stuff is considerably better edited than this.
The Daily Racing Forum YouTube channel, 10% off DRF past performances. Use the QR code in the open of the video. My analysis, of course, in the Daily Racing Forum print and online with your formulator past performances.
Lots of bad dad jokes tonight, but I think people can tell from listening to this show. I love the Maryland circuit, and I love getting to cover it, and I love the people that are involved with it, including John, Dan, and Callie. Thank you three for so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for supporting Maryland racing, and it's been
we love it.
Night.
Awesome. All right. Well, get them out of here. We'll just start getting them out. Oh, nice and quick. Look at Zach. And then I'm going to add Zach to the stage.
Oh, no.
Oh, man. Look at that. Oh, no. Oh, God. you imagine you're some person and you tune in for the first time and you're like, oh, I know Callie Francois. She's good. She was at Kentucky Downs. She's dominating on the Maryland jockey scene. She's doing the whole thing. And then your face pops up. Can you imagine just the disappointment that would happen with those things? And Callie back on the show for no, she's just shaking her head no. That's not Hey, Callie's got one of the top 5 moments in the history of this ridiculous show, talking about the raccoons in her office. Not even close.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's also to be continued. The story is not done there, so that's.
No.
We need a part 2. We need a part 2. We need a. What are the results of what you guys offered and your. And we have 1 year to do it. We have one shot to do it.
I know, you're right.
Yeah. So it's going to take the biggest effort out of all this is for me to make the effort to Pimlico before I actually need to get there. So, best of luck to everybody for that. But, like I said, to be continued, we'll find out.
Awesome. Right, thanks again, Callie.
Yeah, she's Callie Francois. There you go. I have no idea why she talks to me. I don't get it. That's all right. All right. So so there you go. Okay. So here's the deal. You have made the trips with us for Preakness, and you lived in Baltimore for a while.
I did. 15 years.
I think people don't know that we actually enjoy doing these shows. We really like the Maryland circuit. I love the road.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yep.
So freaking logical and well put together. So it's one of those. But it also, I'm glad they're not on here anymore, and there's no chance they're going to go back and listen. I really like all the people in Maryland, too. It's a whole thing. We didn't have Wyckoff. If you happen to still be listening, Dave Rodman, who's going to call all the races, will join me on Rabone Co. at 10:20 a.m. tomorrow Eastern Time on ESPN Louisville. If you are around the country anywhere and you want to listen to that, ESPNLouisville.com, easy to stream us. Frankly, just ask your smart speaker. We're on iHeartRadio. You can find us that way as well. I wanted to pull this up just before we leave. Zach, I think that the 12th is Saturday. I just clicked on Sunday at Laurel Park. That will not help me. As my old computer struggles to find internet connection and run a video at the same time. But here are the field sizes for the late runs at Laurel Park in the late pick 5: 11, 13, 16, 13, and 15. You're going to get value, folks. This is and a 12% takeout. Frankly, if you're going to hit a pick 5 and make some money this year, this actually is an opportunity outside of big days like Derby and Belmont or Preakness or, Breeders' Cup. There's going to be some opportunities in here. And frankly, people were talking about horses to key in on, man, in the sprint, man, trying to beat Whitty. Man, if you can do that with a horse like Maserati, the 11, and get really aggressive, I think there's an incredible chance, frankly, to get some massive value. But Zach, go ahead. Hour 10, our poor guy, John, by the way, John Sherva, dealing with the hurricane down there in Florida. Shout out to everyone who listens to this show in the state of Florida and in North Carolina, wherever you might be, if you've been affected the last month. We are really thinking about you. Hopefully, if you are listening to this, a nice little break from what it is that you're having to deal with on the ground there. But we will catch up with you sometime in the future when we make a trip either to Tampa Bay Downs or down to Gulfstream. We'll hang out then. But
Louis, I know you're a big donor of blood. That is one of the best things you can do during these disasters. You can get out there, find a Red Cross, donate blood. It's they always need it, whether there's a hurricane or not.
There you go. All right, producer Zach. My name's Louis Rabeau at Radio Louis on Twitter. You can find the show at Horse Happy Hour. October 29th, if you're in Louisville, we'll have our Breeders' Cup seminar at BA Colonial across from Iroquois Park. Free to get in, 6 o'clock. Come say hi. We'll have tons of giveaways. And Amwager will be hanging out to help you get your bankroll together.
And don't forget to look for us in San Diego.
We'll be doing a show in San Diego as well, shoring up all of the details on that. And please ping us if you're going to be at the Breeders' Cup. We'd love to say hi to you while we're there. Again, producer Zach, he's right there. I'm Louis Rabeau. We'll talk to you next week on the Horse Racing Happy Hour. I can't get the music at all. Good night, everyone.